Now it's time to head to the movies with our cinematic crusader. Here with another titanium take, here's our movie Maven Kai.
Well, hey there everyone, it is I, your movie Maven Kai, and we have reached the season of summer blockbusters, and I'm sorry to say I haven't had a chance to see Thunderbolts or Superman yet. Like I'm so behind. It's been absolutely crazy. But I think Thunderbolts is streaming now, and I'm gonna make time to go see Superman. Let me tell you why. So many years ago, when Man of Steel came out, I was still very much a DC fan. I really loved the animated stuff. I loved Smallville. I loved all of those things, and I was so hyped to see a really good Superman movie. And about half an hour in, I turned to the person that I went with and I said, "Do you just want to get out of here?" Like it was that bad, that fast. And I stuck it out of pure spite. And ever since then, I have had a personal vendetta against Zack Snyder. I hate him so much. In fact, at that point, I was doing a podcast and I spoke about my eternal hate for Zack Snyder every single week and even got death threats over it. I ended up with a stalker. It was really interesting, mostly because I was speaking out about what a horrible director he is and what a horrible producer David S. Goyer was. And I made several very pointed assumptions, which were opinions, and I believe that that's what we fight to be able to state. But it doesn't save you from the consequences. The whole free speech thing. So that was an interesting time, and now I was kind of like, why are we doing Superman again? Like, come on, guys. Like, give it a rest for a little while. There's so many other superheroes, not just in the DC universe, in the Marvel universe, which, Marvel's doing great, bringing in everybody in these new movies. But I mean, like Dark Horse Comics and, all these, there's so many different comic book companies and writers and everything. Like, let's give something else a chance. And then I started hearing little bits here and there, and everyone is so intent on not spoiling things, but little pieces here and there about the new Superman movie. And I'm actually really excited to see it. I'm really excited to see it. David Cornswith, something. David apparently is doing an incredible job. And then I was watching my Instagram reels, and there's a creator called The Speech Prof, and he's absolutely hilarious. But he did this whole thing about how David gives heavy Brendan Fraser in the 90s energy, and was saying, wouldn't it be great if we did not a Mummy remake, but like a continuation of the story. If you haven't, seen this reel, it's absolutely incredible, the stuff that he goes like, oh, we should do it this way, we should do it that way. Go find him and watch it. But it made me think of the summer of, it must have been 99 when The Mummy came out. And it was one of the greatest summers for movies. It was 98 or 99. Anyway, what a movie. What an absolute treasure The Mummy is. If you've not seen it, basically it's, these two people who are, one's a librarian and one is an adventurer, like Indiana Jones kind of style. His name's Rick, and they're off to seek adventure and end up opening the mummy's tomb, Imhotep's tomb, played by the absolutely fantastic Billy Zane. And hilarity ensues, and 3 or 4 sequels, and different whatever. But the thing that I think was the most striking about this movie was how perfectly it was not only cast and written, but how perfectly it was made for the time. Because we were able to, mix so many things into this movie. It had drama, it had romance, it had adventure, it had comedy, it had a great sense of humor about itself. And I think that's something that a lot of things were lacking at that point, because when you look at the movies that, came out around that time, you had things like South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. And the reason why it was so big was because it didn't take itself too seriously. And then you had movies like Phantom Menace that were too big for their britches, if you will. You know, the Star Wars fandom is already very, 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 you know, divisive. And being a Star Wars fan, I can say that. But they're very divisive and they're very particular, and everybody wants something different, but then they want everything rolled into, you know, one thing. And, you know, if you get too much humor, if you get too much romance, if you get too much whatever, then, you know, the whole movie is terrible. And I am definitely, you know, guilty of this myself when it comes to like Rogue One. There's like a couple of things in Rogue One that just completely, you know, mess up the tone of the rest of the movie for me. But there was something about The Mummy that the balance was so impeccable when it came to all of those, because, you know, at the heart of it, it really is an adventure story. But then at the heart of it, it's also a romance. But at the heart of it, it's also like this amazing supernatural, tale. And it's a take on a story that has been told over and over and over again. And I think that's why, you know, when he spoke about David and Brendan being so similar, is Superman is a story that we've heard over and over and over again. It's been redone in book form and graphic novels, in, you know, movies and TV shows. We've seen so many different, retellings of the same basic storyline or plot or, you know, what have you. But when it comes to The Mummy, you know, same thing, because, you know, Superman came out in the 30s. The Mummy, that story started really, you know, in mass media, really by Universal in the 20s. And it's a story that we know, you know, don't be an adventurer going and opening a mummy's tomb. You're going to release a curse, and then you're going to have to, you know, fight against it to defeat it. But the way that they did it so grandly, the way that they did it in a way that very much spoke of the time, in having those huge, grandiose, amazing special effects, while at the same time staying true to the heart and the idea of the story of the Curse of the Mummy, was absolutely brilliant. And, you know, so much of that came from the writing and direction. It was a well-written movie. It was well-paced. It was beautifully shot. The cinematography, the graphics, everything were, you know, phenomenal. But when you get down to the on-screen relationships, and people usually talk about it as, you know, chemistry, but I see chemistry as more of, you know, where you see like that heat, you know, between two characters, you know, that sexual tension, you know, if you will. It really was just this amazing relation between all of the characters. You know, you had those friendships that fully developed, into that long-term kind of feeling, but then also into romance. It was an enemies to friends to lovers, you know, kind of thing, while not hitting all of those, you know, tropic sort of beats. And there's something about that movie that is just so evergreen, you know, where, you know, it came out, 25 years ago, and people are discovering it now, or they're, bringing it to their kids, or, you know, I have friends that are, you know, teachers that have, you know, shown it in their classes, and, you know, you have this whole new appreciation for the story. But then we also have the reemergence of Brendan Fraser being just amazing in general. We always loved Brendan. There was never a time that we were like, oh, he's canceled and now he's coming back. Or, you know, oh, the Robert Downey Jr. thing where it's like, oh, he had all of these, you know, horrible legal troubles and addictions and everything else. He simply disappeared. He came back. He gave us, you know, a telling of the things that he went through, not to gain publicity, not to, you know, be felt sorry for or what have you, but to tell us, this is why I wasn't ready. Now I'm ready, and here I am. And a whole nother generation of people were able to meet him and embrace him, you know, for all the reasons but mostly because he is an incredibly talented actor and just a lovely guy, you know? So when the idea was brought that we take Superman and we put him into, you know, the role of the great great grandson of, you know, these two people. Oh, spoiler alert, they do get together. Anyway. And, you know, have it be this, you know, this Brendan Fraser energy and, you know, kind of look and, you know, ushering in this new person to kind of take that role while still embracing the fact that Brendan is very much a working actor and someone who is, you know, in the public eye again. I think that's brilliant. I think that's wonderful because we're not erasing the person that we love so much that we're making that comparativeness to. They're not gone. They're just, you know, they're just in a different place now, you know? And it's interesting because, you know, it's often been said that, you know, women in Hollywood have, you know, their three, you know, phases where they're, you know, the bunny bombshell and then, you know, the mom and then, you know, the old wizened judge. You know, and that's basically all the roles that they can play. And, you know, I feel like a lot of people kind of put Brendan into that box too, because when you look at his work, you know, in the early 90s, he was the heartthrob. He was the hard body. We had George of the Jungle. We had Airheads. We had Encino Man. We had all of these movies that With Honors. Don't forget With Honors. With Honors was so good. Anyway, we had, you know, this role where he was the heartthrob. And now he's come back to really stretch his legs and show us that what he was bringing to us in movies like With Honors and School Ties and all of that, that he was an incredibly Gods and Monsters. Oh my God, if you haven't seen Gods and Monsters. Anyway, to really stretch his legs and show us that he has that talent, he has that ability, he has all of that clout that he always should have been seen for. Not that we didn't appreciate Airheads and George of the Jungle and all of these other absolutely incredible roles that he played, because he is so funny and he is so heartfelt and wonderful. But he can play these deeper, more studious roles. And I feel like now he's going to have the ability to do that. But wouldn't we love to see him return to this character and, you know, bring it that life again, bring it that, you know, passing of the torch even. I know that Universal attempted to do, you know, a mummy with Tom Cruise in their new monster universe kind of thing. And, you know, they planned it, they tried, you know, and bringing in all the Wolfman and all of these things, with, you know, the new theme park that they have, and they're going to, you know, do all of this stuff. And hey, they tried, but why fix it if it's not broken? You know, do something. If you're going to do something completely different. And I feel like that's what the Mummy did, in its time, is it did something completely different with the story. So if anybody's watching, it can make that happen. And I laugh because I actually know a bunch of people that work for Universal. So if you guys are watching and you can make this happen, get on the phone, talk to the speech prof on Instagram, because it really is, it's his idea. And I think we should have it come to fruition, because we need more of that kind of entertainment. It's escapism, it's love, it's appreciation, it's cinema, but it also has, you know, those points to make, and it makes them very well. So guys, if you haven't had the chance to take that time for yourself and do something as simple as watch a movie, go watch The Mummy. I'm going to go watch Thunderbolts, and then I might watch The Mummy. I haven't decided yet. I have a ton of work that I need to do. It's been absolutely crazy. And it's funny, as a therapist, we always tell people, like, you know, you have to be able to take time for yourself. You have to, you know, fill your own glass before you can, you know, pour into anyone else's. And, you know, you put on your own oxygen mask first. And we are the last to do any of that, because we are trying so hard to take care of the people that, you know, we are in charge of taking care of. But really, we do have to remember that, you know, therapist or not, we also have to take care of ourselves. So I'm going to finish up some work for the day, because it has to be done, but I have a hard out time so that I can sit down and, you know, do something that's just for me. So I've made that decision today, and I'm very proud of myself that I'm going to follow through with it. And I suggest that you do the same. I hope that, you have an absolutely fantastic, rest of your week or weekend, whenever it is that you're watching this. I get to go to Warped Tour this weekend. So I'm very, very stoked for that as well. It's all, very much a corner for me that I'm having to take in this new role of making sure that I am carving out time for myself. So those few things that I get to do, I'm going to be exhausted come Monday. 2 days in the sun, but it's supposed to be nice. It's in Long Beach. 2 days in the sun will definitely take its toll on me, but it's going to be a blast, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I hope that you guys find something to look forward to, make something to look forward to, do something for yourself, even if it's, taking a nap. Sometimes the little things really are what matter. So treat yourself, guys. And as always, drink your water, you take your meds, and we will see you soon.